Ingin saya ingatkan kepada para peserta di audio Zoom supaya memastikan audio anda dalam keadaan mood senyap agar tidak mengganggu kelancaran ceramah kita pada pagi ini, dan attendance link akan diberikan selepas 30 minit program bermula dan feedback form link akan diberikan sebelum 5 minit program tamat. Dengan ini saya menjemput dan mempersilakan Ustaz Mizi Wahid untuk menyampaikan ceramah beliau. Dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Boleh dengar suara saya jelas? InsyaAllah. Encik Kai boleh dengar suara saya? Saya tak nampak. Saya tak nampak. Tak boleh baca. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Dengar Ustaz ya. Waalaikumsalam.
Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man walah. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for every blessing that He has given us, and peace and prayers be upon our most beloved Prophet, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A very good morning, a very good Friday morning to everyone in attendance today. Thank you so much for having me. Alhamdulillah, I'm honored to be invited on this blessed day to speak to you regarding the topic that you gave me, which is manners in conversation. And I think I would like to begin by highlighting the obvious fact that in life, it is unavoidable for us to have interactions and conversations with people around us. So as human beings, I think it was Imam Ibn Khaldun who said, Al-insanu madaniyun bit-taba', which means that humankind, we are social beings by nature. Okay, so we need to interact with other people. We need to communicate. We need to articulate our thoughts and ideas and then spread it around. We need to seek help from others because we can't do everything on our own. We are put together in teams within organizations and within departments and units so that we can collaborate and support each other to achieve certain goals and objectives, right? So once again, as human beings, it is unavoidable for us to not want to care about the importance of conversation, the manners in conversation. Now, when we look at the times when we were a child, as we were growing up, that would have probably been one of the first few lessons on conversations and speech that we learn directly from our parents. Okay, so your parents would have said something like, don't yell, don't scream, talk nicely, right? Your parents would have said, don't lie, tell the truth, right? Your parents would have said, when elders are speaking, don't try to interrupt, you must respect them, and so on and so forth. We learned some of these mannerisms and adab even growing up as a child. However, we must also appreciate one other fact, and that is that not everyone was blessed with the same kind of upbringing. Not everyone had parents who cared enough about their children's ability to socialize properly when they become adults or when they mix into society as teens and youth. They did not invest enough knowledge in them. And as a result, this is when we see ourselves being in conflict with other people in our conversations. When you look at certain personality traits, among those traits are that some of us, even here, I see 80 people here, perhaps half of us, it is in our nature to be agreeable. We like to agree to other people's ideas and thoughts. When we sit in meetings, we often find ourselves nodding most of the time in agreement because we are very agreeable in nature. And then the other 40% would most likely, it is inbuilt in them that they tend to disagree with people more. Disagreement is part of who they are. They find it difficult to agree immediately to the first thing anybody says. The thoughts that pop up is always, that doesn't make sense, or I strongly disagree with that, or my values goes like they find things, not consciously most of the time, things for them to disagree with. Okay, so that is our nature, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. And that is why we want to talk about this today, because of the fact that we are always working and transacting with others, and we are having to collaborate with others. So this is something that we must all definitely learn. Okay. So I'm done here. So the meaning of adab. So adab obviously is an Arabic word. In the context of behavior, refers to prescribed Islamic etiquette. In our context, normally we say kalau seseorang tu beradab, we say we understand that the person has certain good traits and characteristics, right? They are a person of good character, orang yang beradab. Okay, they are refined, they have good manners, they have good morals, good decorum, decency, they have humaneness within them. Okay, orang ni sopan, ya, santun, ya, dan we notice these characteristics in a person very often in the first few minutes of meeting them, the first 2 or 3 times of conversing with them. We notice that this person has a certain way of presenting themselves and speaking to other people. Even in the manner in which they speak, it is so distinct, unique, different. And because it stands out in one of those good attributes, again, well-refined, good manners, good choice of words, respectful, you say that, this person is a person with adab. Okay? Do we learn these things in school? I think some schools teach adab, teach us etiquettes. Okay? Some of us were put in schools that were outside of school hours, additional lessons, just so that we can learn adab. Now, as we talk about adab first, in general, there is this crisis in society where everybody is looking at everybody else and noticing that there is lack of adab. And then they begin complaining. And then they begin pointing out, like, look at this group, they don't have adab. Look at the young today, look at the youth of today, they don't have adab. Look at our students today, they don't have adab towards their teachers. We're always complaining about not seeing enough people who are respectful to others. When we deem them to be in a situation where they should be having more adab and etiquette. When we complain, for example, parents sometimes come to me and they say, Ustaz, look at the young generation today, they're so disrespectful, they don't listen, tak macam, zaman dulu. And sometimes I think about those kind of statements. I don't immediately agree or disagree, I just think about them. And I wonder, how true is it that people in the past were not like this? number one. Okay? Because I believe that in every society, there will always be people who are difficult. In every society, there will always be people who did not know how to practice proper etiquette in social interactions. I think it's kind of expected, it's normal. There's always going to be a percentage like that. I think today it's more profound because of the platforms that we have, because of the large scale events, because of the many schools, because of the large organizations that we work for, because of social media. We see this becoming more prominent. I don't think necessarily that there are a lot more compared to the past. That's just my opinion. And like I said earlier, you can choose to agree or disagree because it is in the nature of some of us to always like generally agree. And some of us, no, I don't think so. The second thing, when somebody comes to me like a parent who says that, the second thing I think about is, if you say that the youth of today, and you are a parent, right? The youth of today are disrespectful and they don't have proper adab, I want to ask them back, whose children are they? I think the reality will tell us that these are our children. If you're a parent and you say that there are children today, you are one of them, contributing directly or indirectly, one way or another, to the way that they are behaving and interacting. Okay? Either we're not doing enough or we're doing things the wrong way. The things we're doing, trying to educate, trying to tarbiyahkan anak-anak ni, is probably the wrong method. Okay? And that needs correcting. Your intentions may be noble and clear. You know you want to mold the next generation of people in our society, in our nation, to be those with good manners, but maybe the style, the approach is wrong. So it needs rethinking. So on that point, I think rather than us trying to find whose fault is it, or just directly blaming the youth, we have a part and a role to play too. We kind of contributed one way or another. And trust me, you could have contributed by also remaining silent. You could have contributed by choosing not to partake in some of the efforts that people are doing to try to fix some of these social issues, right? So, or neglecting or giving your child too much freedom and so on and so forth. Okay? So the meaning of adab in the beginning is, in the context of behavior, refers to prescribed Islamic etiquettes. And that's why I think today the organizers asked me to specifically talk about adab in Islam. Okay. So let's begin by putting everything into perspective. Why did I say that it's so important? I mentioned about the place that we're in, the workplace, the family, the social gatherings, and all of those things. But there's another perspective that we need to keep in mind. The first thing to remember, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, is that speech, like all other actions, has rulings. When the noble Prophet ﷺ told Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu to restrain this, namely the tongue, he replied, "Will we be taken to task for what we say?" Mu'adh asked, "Ya Rasulullah, will we be accountable for anything that we say?" The striking, vivid prophetic answer should suffice all of us as a reminder of the danger and harm that we can reap with our tongues. Is there anything that topples people on their faces, or he said their noses, into the hellfire other than the harvests of their tongues? Basically, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that there is nothing that is bigger, greater, that would be the cause of us to fall into hellfire head first, other than what our tongues have sown and will eventually reap. We sow evil, we sow gossip and rumors, we sow lies, we sow labels and disrespect. We sow with our tongues all of these bad things through our speech and conversations. And that could very well easily be one of the reasons why we end up in hellfire, na'udhu billah min dhalik, right? So this is, as much as, yes, we are going to talk about adab, but why is adab so important? Because lack of adab does not just mean that you become somebody who is disliked. The lack of adab does not mean that you suddenly become someone who people don't look up to anymore, and that's the end of it. The lack of adab actually results potentially in you being put in a place of eternal punishment, or if not eternal, then severe punishment in the hereafter, right? So we want to avoid that for sure, 100%. What is needed is for us to be more conscious and more mindful of our tongues and what we say, as per this hadith, right? So I hope that puts things once again into context. Before I go on, I'd just like to say that, inshallah, I'll be presenting, and then I will be giving some time, probably half an hour or even more if needed, for us to have a Q&A session, because I think Q&A is very important, and that's when you really get to ask your questions. You can ask anonymously too, via the private messages, and I will read them later on, inshallah. Okay. Let's begin with the basics. Okay. Mannerisms that beautify your conversations. Number one, smile. I remember when I read certain books when I was still in my early 20s or late teens. I read books about public speaking. I read books about this popular book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a very popular personal development book. I think it was there that he emphasized the importance of smiling the first time you meet someone, smiling when you walk on stage, smiling when you join a group of people, like you are late and then people are already seated and they're talking to each other and you join them, smile. Like, smiling is powerful, which is why it is the encouraged sunnah. We are all encouraged to smile, okay? Because we all say, oh, it's a form of sadaqah. Yeah, it's a form of sadaqah. Yes, it's a reward for us, but the kind of effect that it actually sends out to the people around you, the people looking at you, the people wanting to talk to you or wanting to listen to you. Smiling sends out positive, powerful energy. Okay? So if you want to become a better communicator, if you want to become more effective, if you want to simply beautify your adab of conversation, smile more. Okay? I know I have a friend and I have a lecturer who almost every time they speak, they look like they're smiling because they smile so much. Almost everything, maybe you know someone like that, okay? Almost everything they say, it looks like they're smiling throughout their conversations, right? And that is, mashallah, okay? Of course, it gets people glued, but it also gets people to listen, and people become more receptive with the message and the lessons that you're trying to convey. Okay, so the first thing is to try to smile more. Second one is, as Muslims, there is a saying that goes, As-salam qabla al-kalam. Salam comes first, prior to speech. Okay, As-salam qabla al-kalam. So begin with salam, Assalamu alaikum. This is basic etiquette, right? Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you. When you begin a meeting, when you bump into somebody, when you are on stage to begin a talk, always Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, right? The third one is, ask how the person is doing. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ would ask his companions this. Okay, and sometimes it's like, Kaifa asbaht? Okay, how did you begin your day? How was your morning? This is something that our Prophet ﷺ did. It's not something that you think, oh, it's a Western thing. Don't ask people about their morning, their day, their afternoon, their evening. No, no, no. Kaifa asbahta and kaifa amsayta, and these were questions that were asked. Okay, and there was this one interaction I remember where he asked kaifa asbahta, and the person said, bikhair, good. And then he asked again, كيف أصبحت? How's your morning? And he said, good, بخير. And he asked the third time, كيف أصبحت? أنا بخير الحمد لله. And when he said, Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah, then yes, okay. That's the right way to answer, right? So asking people how they're doing shows that you actually care, okay? And people now can sense whether you're genuinely, sincerely asking because you want to know, or you're asking because it's routine, it's expected. You know, bump into someone in the lift, bump into someone in the car park. Hey, apa khabar? Sihat? Like, we don't really, the person can sense you don't really care. You just, you don't know what else to say. But there's a big difference between, hey, how's everything? Are you okay? You know, how's work? How's family? Like, taking less than 5 minutes to do that can have a huge impact on that person's day, that person's mood overall, and the relationship that you would have with that person. There's probably more trust developed over time. Okay. So, and this can even be done with a large group of people. Okay, ask everybody how they're doing. The fourth one is be gentle with your tone. Okay, I don't think anybody wakes up and says, I want to talk to somebody who yells and screams at me today. That would be very nice, wouldn't it? Right? I don't think anybody wakes up expecting that or wanting that or desiring that. And yet there are so many places, especially workplaces, where sometimes, you know, there is somebody, a colleague or a superior or a manager or a supervisor or whoever, who always tends to be very, you know, harsh in their speech. And maybe they're having a rough day, but if they do it all the time, if it's every, you know, interaction you have with them, then you do wonder, like, what's going on, right? Try to be gentle with your tone. The Prophet ﷺ was gentle to friends, family, strangers, and even on occasions with enemies. Okay, so if you can try to follow in those footsteps, as he is our role model, then that would be wonderful. Okay, so be gentle with your tone. Okay, I know that everybody should have their own style, because I studied public speaking and I taught public speaking a lot of times too. And I appreciate, I tell people, be yourself. Be yourself in what sense? In a sense where some people, they're high pitch, you know, when they talk. Some people, their voice is very low, baritone level, right? Some people, they speak very fast. Some people speak very slowly. Some people, their intonations are like all over. Some people, they're very monotonous. So everybody has their own style. But I guess gentleness is not about necessarily the intonations per se or the volume of your voice, but gentleness goes beyond that, because as a person listening, they can sense whether your speech is gentle or not. You just need to imagine yourself in the audience listening, in the meeting listening to you, right? Or the person standing in front of you, how are they feeling with the way you speak? Okay, so it's a lot deeper than what's on the surface. Okay, so try to reflect and ask yourself, how's my tone when I speak? Am I gentle or am I otherwise? Number 5, choose respectful words. Choice of words sounds like you always have a choice, right? The reason why I put this is because I don't think many of us realize that we don't always choose what we say. We don't always choose the words that come out from our mouth. Why do I say this? Because our minds are programmed by the things that we consume on a daily basis. If you watch a lot of shows, and in those shows, they always use vulgarities, profanities, then without realizing, you have absorbed some of those words into your vocabulary. And then when exact similar trigger happens, when you're in that particular situation, you tend to say those words without thinking. That's what I mean by choosing your words. If you don't choose your words, you are just like a system that has been programmed, and you have reflexes that will just churn out those words. They will release those words in your conversations with other people. You're not really thinking, they're just coming out. Okay, so how do we choose our words? Well, one way is to give ourselves a bit of time to respond to an event, to a situation, to a remark that somebody made about you, or a question that somebody asked you, to not feel the need to respond immediately all of the time. Okay, later I'll share something about that. We think that if we respond immediately, we will sound smart, or people will like us, or people will respect us more. But that may not necessarily be true. So my advice is, whenever somebody says something and you feel the need to respond, give yourself a few seconds. Okay? And sometimes if you feel like you need more time, request for more time. It's not weird, it's not weird to say, you know what, that's a very interesting question. Can you give me, a few hours? Let me think about it, and I'll text you back. Well, I'll call you back when I have an answer to that question. Or if it's an email, just relax. Don't reply immediately. Just type everything out, and then you look again at your email. Am I being harsh in my reply, in my response? Do I need to reword everything? Okay. And then you refine your email, and then you send it out, and then it sounds better, and you're more respectful, and you're more gentle. Okay. Allow others the chance to speak too. This is another important trait. Part of being a good conversationalist is being a good listener. There are some books that say that 70% of conversation is listening. 70% of communication is listening. So if you want to be a good communicator, then you must also give others the chance to speak. When they speak, you listen, and then they will feel heard, and they will feel more respected, and they will feel loved even. So don't dominate conversations. Okay, don't dominate conversations. Have you ever been in a setting, in a family gathering or friends gathering, or even in work meetings where only one person tends to say a lot, much more than we need to hear them say, right? And it just starts to give you a headache, right? Oh my God, when is this person going to start? Or why is this person talking too much or asking too many questions? Like, not giving others the opportunity. And I think that is lacking adab. If I'm being honest, that is lacking etiquette. Unless they have permission, unless nobody else has anything else to say, unless they have asked everybody else, do you have anything to ask, anything to say, and everybody remains silent, then okay. But again, there are other issues that are more subtle to that we need to still pay attention to, which inshallah later we can talk about. Okay? Okay, everybody, so far so good? Once again, if you have any questions, please feel free to just type in, and then later I will respond during Q&A. Okay? Okay. Emulating our Prophet's speech, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke distinctly and clearly. That was his style. He did not mumble, and he did not drag, his words, right? He was always very distinct and clear in a way that everyone could understand. The listeners could count his words one by one. That is to just give you an idea of how clearly, and perhaps even the pace of his speech. He wasn't rushing through his conversations. He spoke at a pace where people could actually count the number of words he's saying. Right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He said 7 words, and these are the words, right? They could count. That shows how his mannerisms were. Okay, when in conversation with others. When it was necessary, the Prophet ﷺ would even repeat the important sentences 3 times during his speech. Okay, So for example, one person or one of the companions asked, Ya Rasulullah, give me a wasiyah, like give me an advice. And the Prophet ﷺ said, La taghdab. And then repeated again, La taghdab. And repeated again, La taghdab. Don't get angry, don't get angry, don't get angry. Because that is so profound and important that he felt the need to repeat the same thing 3 times. Okay. So sometimes when repetition is not a bad thing, I've seen people who were so what's the word? Eloquent is one thing, but they're so strategic to a certain extent. When they want to convey a message, they will repeat them throughout the entire speech. Let's say they are given 15 minutes to say something about one particular topic. They will begin with the main statement. Somewhere in between, they will repeat it, but phrased differently. And in the end, they will repeat it again, just to, um, hit a home run, basically. Like, okay, this is the message once again. In case you forgot, the reason I'm telling you this story is because I'm sending you this message. The reason I'm quoting this hadith or verse or whatever you quote from anyone is because I'm sending you this message again. Don't forget. So one key message repeated multiple times. Okay. So why would the Prophet ﷺ repeat something multiple times? Okay. Because number one, for fear that people might forget. Number two, to show importance, the gravity of that matter or that issue. Okay. But number three, it's because he understood that there are people in the audience who may have had wondered, their mind wondered and they were daydreaming. Say it again. Say it again. It happens all the time. Even as I'm speaking here right now, brothers and sisters, please be honest, right? Sometimes when I say something, or I tell a story, or I quote something, or I made a statement, or there's a quote, and then it triggered something in your mind, and then you remembered something that happened in the past, or it reminded you of a moment that you had with your parents or your child or whatever, and then you were away from this webinar for like a good 5-10 minutes. And then suddenly you snap out of that daydreaming and then you're like back here again, right? That happens all the time. Before there were podcasts, I used to buy a lot of audio books and audio programs. Dulu-dulu kena beli CD, mahal juga lah dulu, like, 100 Singapore dollars, and but I would invest in them for my own education, and I love them. Last time it was in my Walkman I would listen to, and then when I had a car, I would put it in my old car and just listen all the time. And I noticed that especially when you're driving or you're on the go, the speaker says something, and then your mind goes off because you're imagining, or you got triggered by it, or it made you think about something. And then you're like, 10 minutes later, where was I? What was I listening to? What is he talking about now? I don't understand what he's talking about now. Then you had to rewind. So having the liberty to rewind in the past, today, when the companions did not have that liberty, right? Like, if they missed it, they missed it. Okay, so sometimes repetition has that power, it's an effect, and even today, it's good to do this. I have a lawyer friend who said, Mizi, my rule is, as a lawyer, when I'm speaking, I will always break everything down to 3. So this is not about repeating 3 times, but he said he broke his arguments into 3 parts, always, he said, and that has made him a very successful lawyer. Okay, so why? Because it's easy to remember. So it's distinct, it's clear, it's numbered, it's small in terms of quantity. The message gets across, and that is key. Okay, so a couple of maybe a week or 2 ago, I shared this post. Adam Grant is an author. I have one of his books, and he has many other books. I really like the things that he shares, most of it. He's an expert in, I would say, organizational excellence. Okay, I think that's his area. HR, big organizations. Yeah. So he said this: we listen too much to people who think fast and shallow, and too little to people who think slow and deep. Being quick on their feet may make them sound smart, but it doesn't mean that they're wise. Big decisions and tough problems require careful consideration, not rapid responses. Wow, I love that so much because it's so relatable on many levels. Okay, so as you can see, even my style of speaking, okay, some people do joke about it, like Ustaz Mizi ni, apa dia cakap itu dia? I met the guy and he said, and Ustaz Mizi ni tenang, penuh dengan kasih sayang. He joked like that, and I laughed, along with him. But I used to feel like this style that I have was not entertaining enough, was not attractive enough, was not going to, like rock an auditorium, like it would not make people feel alive and motivated. Like I felt like it was not going to be good enough, that I needed to change my style. And going back to my earlier point of, everybody has their own unique ways, and you shouldn't feel like you need to be somebody else. You just need to be yourself. What I did instead was, instead of changing too much, I just made sure that even if I spoke in this kind of tone, I'm not like one of those preachers who like, yell and shout and raise their voices. But I made sure that my words were distinct, were clear, my sentences were succinct. Okay. In fact, today's session, I asked my assistant, how long is today's session? He said 2 hours, 2 hours. I don't usually do 2 hours for quite some time. My talks are either 1 hour, 1.5 hours. That's pretty much it. If you listen to my podcast, a lot of them are like 15 minutes, 20 minutes. If I'm speaking alone, if I have a guest, then maybe. And there's a reason to it, because I don't think people necessarily will remember, a lot of it. There were studies that showed that even in lectures, you go to university, when there's a lecturer who comes in and your lecturer presents for an hour or two, people forget 70% or 80% of it 10 minutes after leaving class. That's how we are. We are wired that way. And that's why you find a lot of the Prophet's sayings were very brief. They're easy to retain, easy to remember. Yeah. So of course, we can't compare. School has curriculum, has syllabus, has a lot to cover, textbooks and so on. So I totally get that. I appreciate that. I went through the system too. But in other places, in other circumstances and situations we find ourselves in, if you think that you can be brief, try to be brief. Okay. People used to look down on Twitter because like this is a Twitter screenshot, right? Because they say like, Twitter is for shallow people because you only have 140 characters or so. Okay. We want profound reading. Well, you want profound reading, then there is a place for that. You want academic books, there's always a place for that. If any one of you have ever read my books, you will notice that my books are also, actually all of them are very brief. You're all less than 150 pages. Yeah, generally most of them are less than 150 pages. And the words are very well spaced in between. I don't cram so much, and that's just my style, and everybody has their own style. For me, I just want to convey the key messages that I feel needed to be conveyed so that people would be able to value them, remember them, apply them accordingly, right? So look at what Adam Grant says here. We need to give more attention to people who think slow and deep, okay, and not just be impressed by people who can think on their feet and speak very quickly and give rapid responses. Because more often than not, the ones who take a little bit longer to reply are the ones who give it more deliberation and thought. They probably have better ideas and solutions to offer. So just think about that, okay? So on the topic of being brief and succinct, the Prophet ﷺ said, I was sent with the characteristic of expressing many things with few words. Brevity is another beautiful topic to learn. When I was studying there was a subject called balagha in Arabic, and there we studied this thing too, which is brevity. Okay, meaning saying a little but having a lot of meaning in it. You say a short few words, but the meanings are so deep. It makes you think. It makes you react. Okay, it inspires you to change something about your life. So brevity is powerful, and Prophet ﷺ said that was one of the characteristics that he was blessed with. He could express many things, but he only needed a few words to do that. Which is why we should always study the Quran, because the Quran has many verses and words where scholars discuss thoroughly and deeply about the meaning of just one word, the meaning of just one verse. I think there are books that are written about the verse of Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, one verse. But there are books written about that one verse. There are books written about the verse of Nurun ala Nur, right? There are many things that are very short and brief, but the meanings are so vast. And that is the blessing that was given to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And of course, we as the Ummah, we get to learn, we get to benefit from those teachings too. And hopefully we can apply in our lives and in our daily interactions. Okay? There's another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said, Fuddiltu ala al-anbiya'i bisittin, which means I was given more benefit. Okay, I'm giving a loose translation, more benefit, more honor over the other prophets in 6 matters. And one of them is U'titu jawami al-kalim. I was given jawami al-kalim. Jawami al-kalim means words that are very brief, but the meaning is whole, comprehensive, all-encompassing. Like that was part of the blessings that I was given. The Prophet ﷺ said that perhaps other prophets in the past were not given. Okay? So when you're not straight to the point, you don't know how to speak with brevity. You only know how to speak with many, many words. You drag on and on and on and on and on. There are many downsides to it. Number one, you cause others to lose interest. People start to doze off. People start to look at other things. They start to get distracted. They're not interested anymore. And you're just wasting your time. Okay? Number two, you may digress a lot and become unfocused. The other problem is not on the people that you're talking to. The other issue is that you become a person who makes it a habit to digress. Okay, you're talking, suddenly you're talking about one matter, and then suddenly your mind goes off and talks about something completely unrelated. Have you ever noticed that happen to you before? If you have, then you need to snap out of it quicker. Okay, snap out of it quicker, because it's not a good habit to keep. Okay, the faster you realize that, hey, this is really not good, right? I'm becoming more and more unfocused. I need to train my mind. I need to be more mindful of where I am, what I'm talking about, what my objectives are, what I'm supposed to deliver, what I need these people to understand. And don't go too off tangent. It's okay once in a while. Okay, if you talk to the same group of people a lot and it's always about one particular subject matter, it's okay once in a while to share, you know what I did last weekend? I went out with my family and something funny happened. It's okay. But to do that all of the time, it's never good. Okay? Because it causes your mind to behave that way in many other things. Anything you do is everything you do. You become unfocused in your conversations with people. You become unfocused in every other work that you're trying to accomplish, any task that you're trying to finish. You always tend to get easily distracted. Number three, you make your audience confused. Everybody thought that, hey, I thought we are here to learn about this, but he's talking about this, she's talking about that. What is she really trying to say? I'm confused right now. right? In Singapore, we have this thing called the premarital workshop, khusus rumah tangga. Back then it was compulsory, so everybody had to attend it, especially during my time when I got married. But now it's not compulsory anymore, but it's highly recommended. Okay, so what I noticed is this. Okay, so even I attended it, right? Of course, because I got married like before this thing stopped being compulsory. So I noticed that, okay, I attended a program that was 2 days long, okay? Khusus rumah tangga ni 2 hari, Saturday, Sunday. And I could not focus as an audience, and I lost interest very quickly. And I was not trying to be like that. I was not trying to be disrespectful or anything, or I did not give the person a chance, but I just couldn't. Why? Because the person kept digressing. Like, imagine you sit down and there's a workbook, there's a textbook for this entire 2-day workshop. The person kept going off tangent, telling this story and that story. One or two is fine. But I think a good 2 hours of every day is like stories that are completely unrelated. And everybody became very restless. Like, when are we going to learn this? When are we going to learn that? When are we going to do this activity? And the trainer starts skipping this activity. Tak apa, kita tak buat ni, it's not so important. And you felt like we could have done all of those things if you stayed focused, right? So you make your audience very, very confused if you're unfocused. And lastly, you are wasting people's time. Some people, they are very particular about time. They love people who are punctual. They love people who are prompt. They love people who respect other people's time. And the moment they notice that you don't really respect their time is often when you are supposed to talk about one thing, you talk about something else. They came because, for example, as you can see, this image is one of the talks I did in KL, forgiveness in a marriage. So they came thinking, okay, Ustaz Mizi is going to talk about forgiveness in a marriage. And then I start talking about, I don't know, maybe forgiving parents. Like, it's not related, right? It's then people start, huh? Why is he talking about parents? Or talking about starting a family? Like, it's not anything that serves the main objective. Okay, so then people become restless, like I said, but some people may even get mad. They get really, really angry when they realize, I just wasted my weekend. I just wasted my time. I just wasted my resources. I went here. It was a 1-hour drive. I woke up in the morning to attend this session. Okay. And he's not talking about what I wanted him to talk about. And people get really, really angry. So don't waste people's time. Try to get straight to the point if you can. Okay. So that's why, once again, a lot of my sessions now, I try to, I have something I want to say. This is the topic that we've organized. I want to get straight to the point. I hope everything I say, 90% of it will be very, very much directly related to what the purpose of the talk is about. Okay. The next thing is this very famous hadith, which I believe many of you would have heard. Many of you find it very, very familiar. Choosing silence when speech is unnecessary. Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut. The Prophet ﷺ said, he who believes in Allah and in the last day must either speak good or remain silent. This, once again, brothers and sisters, is the Prophet ﷺ telling us that you have a choice. You have a decision, right? Just because a group of people are talking about someone, they're gossiping or something, does not mean that you need to partake in that conversation. Just because somebody provoked you with something they said about you does not mean that you must respond in a negative way, or you must respond at all. If it is pointless, if it is baseless, if it's just meant to trigger you. So I hope that we do not just look at this hadith as something very passive, but to me, it's very empowering. I realize when I look at this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that we have a choice. The power is within us. How do you want to respond? Do you want to respond? Do you need to respond? And if you do, what would you say? All of those things, okay, you are equipped with the power of choice. So this also always reminds me of the golden rule. What is the golden rule? The golden rule is like a universal thing that some scholars who study religion, they say that in almost all religions, there's always this golden rule. And you can find this in another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, another famous one. La yu'minu ahadukum hatta yuhibba li akhihi wa yuhibbu li nafsihi. None of you truly believe until you love for your brother what you love for yourself. So the golden rule is what? Do unto others as you would like others do unto you. Okay? Kalau kita nak orang hormat kita, kita kena hormat orang lain. Kalau kita tak suka orang buang masa kita, kita jangan buang masa orang lain. Okay? Kalau kita suka orang berbicara dengan kita dengan nada yang baik, yang tenang, yang menunjukkan penghormatan, kita buat sama seperti itu. So it's always about, reciprocity, okay? Being, treating others the way you want to be treated. Of course, the reality of life is that not everyone will treat you the same way as how you treat them. But that does not mean that you compromise on your values and your principles. Okay? Choose to be nice anyway. Choose to be respectful anyway. Choose to be kind anyway. Because as a Muslim, we know that when we behave in such a manner, we will be blessed. We will be rewarded. For what? For not hurting others. For what? For following in the footsteps and the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I believe that that is enough. That is enough, more than enough. Okay? So try to remind ourselves of all of this, and hopefully, we will always do the right thing, inshallah. All right. I'll be presenting another, maybe 20 minutes or so, and then we can have Q&A, okay? Okay. Things to avoid in matters relating to speech. Number one, avoid indulging in meaningless conversation. There are many warnings in the Quran, in the Hadith, about being in groups of people where people just sit down, waste time. They don't really talk about anything useful and beneficial. I often see quotes flying around, people sharing around, and that shows the distinction between different groups of people. Some people, I think, okay, if I remember correctly, the analogy is with birds. Okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Chicken, crows, and eagles. Chickens talk about things. Crows talk about people. Eagles talk about ideas. Something like that. I may be wrong. So the point here is, we get very consumed talking about things, talking about possessions, talking about branded goods, talking about cars, talking about houses, talking about clothes, talking about gadgets. We get so engrossed talking about people, talking about their relationships, talking about this celebrity's marriage, talking about this scandal that's happening, talking about politicians, talking about our neighbors, talking about our relative who got pregnant before they got married, talking about this person who borrowed money from us and has not paid us back. Like, we got so engrossed in talking about people. The best thing to talk about rather is ideas, and ideas can include the ideas that you learn in school, in university, the ideas that you talk with your friends about certain things that are happening around the world, talking about how to overcome poverty, talking about the socioeconomic status of the people, talking about health matters, talking about education in general, talking about religion. Just, having those kind of conversations are more meaningful, and it's more productive as a whole, and you learn a lot as well. Okay, so avoid indulging in meaningless conversations. There is this stereotype that is often associated to orang Melayu, and that is, kita ni suka lepak, budaya lepak, right? We sit down, lepak, jom lah lepak. Lepak maknanya apa? Just duduk-duduk and berbual meripik, like for long hours. And we get so used to it that we enjoy talking about nothing. There is a time for that, but if it happens too much, then something is wrong somewhere. Okay, something is wrong. Doesn't mean that we cannot talk about things that are fun, funny, relaxing. We can, but the percentages are right. Like, are we like 90% of our conversations are empty, only 10% are meaningful? Then there's something to be looked at there. Okay. Number 2, avoid hate speech. Okay, when you talk, whether you're speaking alone, you as in to a large audience, or you're talking to friends, avoid hate speech. Don't spend so much of your hours, your days, your life criticizing, condemning other people, finding fault in them, and then spreading it to people. Okay, we will be accountable, as per the first opening hadith I said, for all of these things on the day of judgment. Okay, you would fall into hellfire face first, as the Prophet ﷺ said, or nose dive into it because of something you said. Sometimes the problem here is that when somebody does something wrong, we exaggerate the hate speech. Okay, one person did one wrong thing and we blow it out of proportion. We say this person is 10 times more for whatever reason. We bring in other matters that are completely unrelated. Okay, just to, again, make it bigger, to magnify it. Hate speech sometimes is associated to specific characteristics of that particular person. For example, hate speech towards people of other faith, hate speech towards a specific gender, men or women, hate speech towards people with a different socioeconomic status. Like, there's hate speech to the poor and the destitute. There's also hate speech towards the rich and wealthy. It's hate speech all around. They're the same. Number 3, avoid backbiting, something which our religion clearly prohibits. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, what is backbiting? It is basically, he said, in meaning, anything that you say about somebody in their absence, that if they were to hear it, they would dislike it. Backbiting is you saying something about someone in their absence to somebody else, that if they were present and they heard what you said, they would not like it. So that is the definition of backbiting. And of course, in the Quran, there's a verse that suggests that if you were to backbite a lot about somebody, that your punishment would be to eat the flesh of that person's deceased body, right? Ayuhibbu ahadukum ayyakula lahma akhihi maitan fakarihtumuh, Allah says, right? So you would definitely dislike it. So don't say anything bad about someone behind their back. Number 4, avoid spreading or listening to gossip. Another common thing that we like. And unfortunately, guys, today, it becomes a lot easier with social media, with messaging apps, forward, screenshots, share buttons. Things go viral really, really quickly. And most of us don't even know the truth behind it. Okay, so when it comes to, for example, just now, like the point on backbiting, it doesn't matter whether it is true or not true. Okay, sometimes you might say, but Ustaz, I'm not backbiting. What I'm saying is true. Yeah, but if the person heard it, even if it's true, would he like it? Would she like it? The answer would be no. So don't say anything. That's backbiting. What benefit do you get, right? Spreading gossip. When you say gossip, rumors, these are often news and information that has not been verified. that you did not listen, as the English saying says, from the horse's mouth. You did not listen from him or her. You heard it from somebody else about him or her. And then you start listening, you enjoy it, or you get excited by it, or you have inside news, or there's hot gossip going around, you want to share it. People tend to be very proud nowadays. Okay, I'll be honest, people very, very proud when they are the first to know. Hey, I found out about this. I'm the first to know. I need to share this. I want everybody to know that I got this news first. It's very sad, the state that we're in, because people are glorified for being the first to expose something about someone. So they want that honor. To them, it's an honor. In Allah's eyes, it is the complete opposite of honor. Okay, there is severe punishment. One time, the Prophet ﷺ passed by a cemetery, and there was a grave where he stopped and he broke the branch of a date tree into half, and he planted one on one grave and then one on the other. The companion asked, Ya Rasulullah, why did you do that? He said, one of them because they never performed istinja when they urinate, and then the other one is because that person practiced namima, and they were both being tortured. I could hear their screams in the grave. And one way to lessen their torture is to plant something on their grave, because of the benefit of having a living thing that is always obedience to Allah, always making remembrance to Allah. So that kind of like lightens the torment, the adab in the grave. So one of them was somebody who likes to share about other people's stories. Okay, so be careful about that. Number 5, avoid talking too much about oneself. When it's supposed to be about something else, but you just talk about yourself over and over and over again. And this can happen even when you go Hari Raya visiting, right? Like, why is everything about you? You visit someone else's house and you talk about yourself. Shouldn't it be about that person? Because you came to visit them, you're supposed to ask how they're doing, how their family's doing. Is everybody healthy? How is everybody's work? Ask them about the house, ask them about their relatives, ask them about all those things. And instead, what we do is we spend, half of the time there talking about ourselves, or more than half of the time. Unless, of course, they ask, right? But always insist to find a way that, hey, enough about me. I want to hear about you. Okay? So again, remember about being a good communicator, it's always giving ample time to yourself to listen to. Next, avoid using sarcasm. So we see this happen a lot. Husband and wife, amongst friends, amongst colleagues, okay? And the most common nowadays, you see this is on social media, okay? Kita guna sindiran. And more often than not, this type of sarcasm is disliked, and it's meant to really hurt. Have you ever seen anybody post something on Facebook or on social media, and then they write a long post, okay? And all of it is sarcasm, sindiran. And then kat bawah sekali dah habis kan, hashtag note to self. Kan? Konon-konon macam nasihatkan diri dia sendiri. Tapi dia tahu that note to self is actually note to Hamzah, or note to Farah, or note to somebody lah yang dia tengah nak sindir tu. Right? And we use that as a mechanism to actually get something off our chest, or to release some kind of anger, or to deliver a message that we think is more effective like that. Not always. I think people tend to receive it worse when they know that you tengah sindir kat dia. It's harder for them to receive it, whatever nasiha or advice that you're trying to give. Number 7, avoid using disrespectful labels to refer to someone. Right? Alah si pendek tu, alah si dat tu yang suka kahwin tu, dah 3-4 kali dia kahwin kan. Alah si dat tu yang yang rambut putih tu, for example, whatever lah, you use labels. Alah dia tu yang transfer, alah dia tu yang suka membudik dekat bos kan. Macam we always find labels for people, and a lot of them are disrespectful. And people always say, you know what we call him in our chat group? We call him this. You know what we call her in our chat group? We call her this. Like, you have nicknames and they're all unpleasant. So it's best to not use those things, okay? Labels that are respectful, honorable, is okay lah. Yang orang suka. But the ones that people don't like, please avoid completely, okay? Next. Number 8, avoid bringing up someone's unpleasant past. Most of the people that we meet with and eventually develop a kind of friendship with, either because they are fellow co-workers or they are fellow peers and students in the same cohort, they might open up to you and share with you about their past that they're not very proud of. They made some mistakes. They committed some wrongdoing. They needed to share it with someone because it's bothering them a lot. It's keeping them awake at night. They need to share it with someone so that they will feel a little bit better. When they share it with you, that is an unspoken trust. That matter is of full confidentiality. Do not discuss this with anyone. Do not share this with anyone. I'm just letting you know because I trust you. Yet, when we hold on to that trust, we think, I'm doing a good job. I never told anyone. But then, as that person is making progress in your life, trying to be a better version of themselves, every now and then you will bring up their past. As they're trying to do better in life, they say, ingat kau dulu kan pernah buat gini, jangan rasa diri dah bagus sangat, dulu kau pernah buat gini. Like, help them become better by encouraging them, not always, mengungkit kisah-kisah lama and, bringing back and mentioning and reminding them, remember who you were. You did this. You were a drug addict. You did this. You're a divorcee. You did this. You abused someone before. You did this. You caused someone's marriage to break. You did this. Like, so many, you keep reminding that person of all the things that they did that they are not proud of, and it holds them back. Okay, it holds them back from finally improving their lives. That's not right. So, brothers and sisters, don't bring up someone else's past, especially those that are unpleasant. Number 9, avoid interrupting others while they are speaking. So just now in the beginning, I did share an example of when we were younger, when we were kids. Our parents would teach us some lessons here and there about manners and adab in conversation. And one of them, whenever the elders are speaking, a child must never interrupt. Remember that? Kita tengah, kawan ayah kita datang ziarah dia kat rumah berhari raya, and then dia tengah berbual, kita sibuk, ayah nak air, ayah nak makan. Nanti jangan menyampuk boleh tak, orang tua tengah berbual, right? They always say something like that, right? So that is a very good lesson to remember. Okay, you wait until the right time comes. So try to listen more, give attention or not give attention, give space to the people who are talking, and then only say something when you're given a chance to. In the classroom, the standard procedure is raising your hand. Even now in Zoom, there's a raise hand function for you to, and then when the speaker says, okay, go ahead, you have something to say, then you speak. So that is more respectful, and that is the better way to go about, inshallah. Okay. Next is avoid making others feel small through our words. I see this happening far too many times. We say something, the person feels so hurt because of something we said to describe them. I can say that I have been on the receiving end of some statements like that. And even it can come from someone older than me. It has come from someone younger than me. And I think I realize that if I don't like it, then I must never cause this to happen to anybody else. I must never say anything to make someone feel small, right? People have said things that made me feel like, really? So that's not enough. For example, last time I used to drive a certain type of car, and I drove to an event. I think it was another university in Singapore. Then when the student picked me up, the student saw the car that I was driving, and the student said, "What was that? I didn't know you would drive a car like that. I thought you would drive a different kind of car." And he was suggesting like a better car, or a more expensive car, or better brand of car, a better model. And like, I just kept quiet. I said, "Oh, okay," and just moved on. I realized that, wow, him saying that suddenly made me feel small and insignificant, and it hurt me, right? Like, but at the same time, I'm bigger than that to allow myself just to react to it, or to put him in his place or whatever, right? Um, and I know that people should not be defined by their possessions. People should not be defined by their bank account. I think people should all be respected regardless of whatever they own or they don't own, how much money they have or they don't have, what rank they are in society, or without a rank. I think the Prophet's way is to always treat everybody with respect. So be careful not to say things that will make other people feel small through our words. Number 11, avoid arguments that have no purpose. Again, another famous hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, in meaning, again, I will promise a house in paradise for anybody who avoids an argument, even though they may be right. Okay? I think it was a house in the outskirts of paradise, right? So that's a big promise if you can give up on one matter, and that is to not be engaged in an argument where there is no end, where there is no purpose. Perhaps the only goal and purpose that both parties will get out of it is feeding their ego and getting to win in that argument. A lot of people go into an argument so that they can win. They don't go into an argument to learn something new, to get their message across. They just want to, especially if it's visible across many people, like many people could see it. Example, social media. I have seen two adults, okay? I think both of them like in their 40s, early 40s or something. And they were like going back and forth on several issues. Their Facebook debate is like, you can sit down, eat popcorn for hours, you can see them going back and forth, okay? And it was not the kind of debate where it's like name calling. It was heated but lengthy, and they wanted to appear smarter than the other. I guess they want to give the impression to those who are following the debate, the arguments that they were having, to say that, look, my argument is better. Like, I think they wasted their entire day doing that. At the end of the day, who won? Nobody won. Okay, so avoid arguments. I think if you can avoid them, better. The only time probably you need to engage is if you can keep it brief and get straight to the point, and only focus on the one or two things that you feel like needs to be corrected or needs to be argued at. Okay. Another 10 more minutes, then we go for Q&A, okay? How should they speak to each other? So let's try to put things into context. And in this case, in your workplace, your organization, in school, for example. In any workplace, there will always be a hierarchy where there is a manager, a leader, a project manager, a supervisor, somebody who is a superior, and then somebody who reports to that superior, a subordinate, a junior staff, a junior executive, a young executive. Like, they're just starting out, so they need to report to that officer all the time. So I've done many talks for different organizations, big corporations, in Brunei, in Singapore, in Malaysia. And a common question that often comes up is this, about the difficulty to talk to somebody who is their superior, and the superior feeling like every time they say anything, it is never received well by their subordinate, even though they mean well. Okay? I would begin by saying that I would refer back once again, since the topic today is adab in Islam, referring to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he said, Laisa minna man lam yuwakkir kabirana wa lam yarham saghirana. They are not truly from amongst us, those who did not respect the elders from amongst us, and those who did not show mercy for the young from amongst us. Okay? So in order for you to communicate with someone older than you, more senior than you are, yuwakkir. Okay? So you must show respect. And when you're looking down on somebody who is younger than you, less experienced than you are, show mercy, show love. They are inexperienced. They are going to make mistakes. They are going to make some errors. Okay? It's okay. Learn to let it go, or teach them in a kind way, or be more compassionate and understanding about the fact that they're still new. Okay? So that's how I feel the approach is best done, as per the teachings of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. But in order for the junior to get the best out of the senior, when they need guidance, need help, need wisdom, the way they ask for help must be done in a respectful manner. Okay? They are not from amongst me those who do not respect those who are the more senior from amongst us. Okay? Respect comes in the way that you say something, and what you say, and what you call them. All of these things together must always be done with a lot of consciousness. Be mindful of everything that comes out. Okay, so I'm going to talk to this person. This person is 20 years my senior. This person has 10 years of experience, more than I do. Like, how would I approach him? If I were in his position, if I were in her position, how do I want to be spoken to? Okay, empathy can be so powerful. John C. Maxwell is one of the leading figures in leadership. He has written, I think, more than 20, 30 books on leadership. And one of the big lessons I always remember, he said that the best leaders are the most demanding and the most compassionate. Okay, so how do you put these two things together for all the leaders here who are listening in and future leaders? You must be demanding. You cannot be so gentle and so weak and so meek that your team does not know that some things need to be done. You need to be demanding. I want this to be done exactly like this, and I want it to be done by this date. Okay, I want you to do it with this person, for example. Like, be demanding, but you need to be also very compassionate. If somebody falls ill, if their loved one is not well, if they're having some financial difficulties at home, and so on and so forth, and a marriage is falling apart, when there are other issues and you can appreciate those things, you show compassion. That's what makes you a great leader, because if you can understand them in those times, they will go all out for you in other times when they are in a better place, because they know that you care about them, and people are more willing to do more for those who care about them, and they care for them back. So, I hope I'm making sense here when it comes to this situation and predicament that a lot of people find themselves in, between superior and subordinate. Always not, I wouldn't say that they don't get along well, but there's some kind of hurdle in the conversations that they have. There's a communication breakdown, so to speak. And you work on that by just the way and the manner. Once again, it's respect and compassion/mercy. Okay, so I think this is my last slide before we go for Q&A. My dear brothers and sisters, it is 2022, and we're talking about mannerisms in conversation, adab. We must not stop at face-to-face conversations. We must recognize that the world we live in today, social media, is a big platform where more is being said and more is being read. more is being recorded, and more is being watched and listened to. When you recognize all of this, then you know that the chances of you saying something that might offend someone is a lot higher. The chances that someone may misunderstand what you wrote on your Facebook account is higher. The chances that someone may take something out of context, may be hurt by your sarcasm, is higher. Everything is magnified and multiplied in the world of social media. And this is something that we cannot ignore or avoid or pretend it doesn't exist or pretend like, it's no big deal. Let's not fool ourselves. It is a big deal and it affects many relationships. Okay? I've seen people who complain about work and then suddenly their superior, their boss accidentally reads it because mutual friends or kadang-kadang Facebook ni bila mutual friend like something, it will pop up juga. Macam, you don't follow this person because somebody, and then you ternampak, this person is talking about me. Yeah, like, and then it ruins a relationship. It could be a working relationship, it could be family relationships. I once counseled a couple. This person said, Ustaz, saya post private Ustaz, saya punya friends dekat Facebook sikit je. Tapi macam mana entah dia punya, the guy punya family semua dapat tahu saya cakap pasal diorang. Like, come on. Why are we so naive? Social media, phones, everybody just screenshot, share. Don't assume that everybody who follows you likes you. That's the first rule. Not everybody who is your friend on social media is a true friend in real life. Sometimes they're just there to find fault. Sometimes they're just waiting for you to crumble. And then they want to be the first to spread it like wildfire. Okay? Be careful. Be mindful of what you say. You'll be accountable. So, dulu-dulu, when I was a child and I learned about our deeds being written, and then on the day of judgment it will be shown. I'm pretty sure during the times of the Sahaba, the companions, during the times of the great Imams, Imam Nawawi, Shafi'i, Ghazali, Imam Malik, Imam Hanafi, like, to understand that concept is a bit hard, right? Like, how can everything we do be recorded? But today it's not strange anymore. Everything we do is being recorded. There's so many things recording our every move. There are so many cameras out there. The moment we step out of our homes, our gadgets recording everything we say, everything we do, everything we type, everything we post, every photo we've ever taken in our lives, everything is recorded. So you do not want, okay, this is another scary thought. I want everybody to think about this because I opened with a scary, thought, not scary, but, like something that awakens us up, that on the day of judgment, we'll be judged by what we say. You see, sometimes every now and then you'll see people saying, inna lillahi wa inna ilaihi raji'un, somebody just passed away, kawan kita just passed away. And then, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get into this state of curiosity where I just want to click on that person's profile, whether I know them or not. And I'm curious because I want to see what was the last thing they posted on social media, right? I'm always curious, like, and I'm not curious kepo. I want it to be a wake-up call for me. I do not want the last thing I post on social media is something bad, something evil, sarcasm, mengumpat. I share rumors about some person, celebrity or apa ke. I do not want that to be the last thing I share. Na'uzubillah min dhalik. Okay? I want the last thing I share to be positive, informative, uplifting, encouraging, inspiring, helping people to change, helping people to become better versions of themselves, or some deep reflection of that I make myself that others can benefit from. Like, maybe my last share is a verse in the Quran. My last share is me trying to make sense of a hadith. Like, I want something that I share on social media to be something good and positive, because if that's the last thing I ever say and it will be recorded, let it be a good one. Let it be a good one. And I pray for all of you that we may have good endings in our lives, right? So when we ask for husnul khatimah, it is not just literally, the last breath, what we're doing, but it's also everything else, the last, sadaqah that we made, the last thing we said to our mother, the last, impression we give to our neighbors, the last words we said to our colleagues, the last words we posted on social media. All of those things, the endings must all be good. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Innamal a'mal bil khawatim." Verily, all actions are by their endings, and we hope that our endings are always good, inshallah. May Allah grant us that ability and that blessing and that reward, inshallah. Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab. I shall end here, and we shall now move on to Q&A, inshallah. Thank you so much. I pass it back to Brother Kai. If you could help to read the questions for me, that would be good too. Thank you.
Okay, Ustaz, for the first question, soalannya adalah daripada Brother Adam Haziq. Dia bertanya kepada Ustaz, bagaimana cara untuk kita nak tegur orang yang kurang adab ketika makan?
Ketika makan?
Contoh
kurang adab.
Makan berbunyi ke? Makan gelojoh ke?
Oh, okay. Maaf, sebelum tu saya baru dapat message daripada tim saya tak tengok phone. Mereka kata permintaannya untuk guna dua bahasa, Malay dengan English. Saya tak perasan. Sebab saya selalu tengok poster in English, saya ingat semuanya English lah. Okay, so I apologize for that. Bagaimana nak menegur orang yang kurang etiket ketika sedang makan? Saya tengok juga Nabi SAW pun pernah menegur sahabat-sahabat kan. Kalau kita baca buku kitab Syama'il Muhammadiyah kan, ada Nabi kata kul mimma yalik, makan apa yang dekat dengan kamu. Maksudnya Nabi tegur sahabat ni depan-depan, tapi dia tegur dengan cara yang lembut, tegur bukan dengan cara yang memalukan. Kalau boleh, teguran-teguran yang paling efektif pada pendapat saya adalah yang dilakukan dengan hikmah, dan antara cara yang berhikmah itu adalah kita buat secara peribadi, secara direct, bukan secara terbuka. Okay? Kebanyakan masa orang akan lebih susah untuk nak menerima sekiranya teguran itu dibuat secara terbuka depan orang lain. Malulah, kan? Jadi kita bawa dia ke tepi, okay? Kita tegur dia dengan baik. Itu mungkin nasihat saya lah. Sebab kita tak boleh buat satu sangkaan yang semua orang pernah diajar, ya, bagaimana ketika sedang bermakan di hadapan orang lain. Kan, kita dulu duduk, kita besar, kita makan dengan family makan dengan cara mereka yang sendiri kan. Jadi kita ingat, oh ni boleh lah, maknanya semua orang boleh terima cara ni. Sebenarnya mungkin dalam kita berinteraksi dengan orang ramai, in society, we need to understand that there are certain etiquettes that are more that need to be practiced lah. Jadi kita nasihat dengan secara private lah, wallahu a'lam.
Okey, terima kasih Ustaz atas menjawab soalan tersebut. So untuk persoalan yang seterusnya adalah, mungkin Ustaz boleh terangkan cara untuk kita memberi teguran kepada individu yang kurang manners ataupun yang kurang adab tadi, tapi teguran yang diberikan tu tidak menyinggung perasaan individu tersebut.
Baik. Tadi saya cakap kan, mungkin cara sindiran itu berbahaya sekiranya kita tidak bijak menggunakannya. Ya, tidak semua sindiran, sarcasm itu inefektif. Ada kalanya dia boleh juga berkesan. Okay. Bagaimana caranya? Kita kena very indirect. Ya. Jangan sampai membolehkan seseorang itu terasa. Okay. Tetapi cukup untuk dia menyedari yang ada message dan isi kandungan dalam kata-kata itu yang boleh mereka manfaatkan. Okay. Jadi itu satu cara. Cara yang lain adalah seperti yang tadi juga. Okay. Kalau kita rasa orang tu kurang adab, kita cuba berbicara dengan dia secara peribadi. Sekiranya orang yang kurang adab itu, kita rasa dia lebih senior daripada kita, mungkin cara yang lebih baik adalah untuk mendatangkan seorang yang sebaya dengan beliau ataupun sekurang-kurangnya orang yang dia menghormati. Kan? Kadang-kadang kita tahu, oh, dia ni kalau aku cakap, mesti dia tak dengar. Sebab apa? Sebab aku junior staff. Sebab aku masih muda. Nanti dia cakap, apa kau tahu kau masih muda? Kita cuba cari orang yang kita tahu dia menghormati, yang dia respect. Siapa? Mungkin dia punya profesor ke, dia punya cikgu, kan? Sekarang yang lebih senior daripada dia, mungkin pakcik dia ke. Kita tahu ada orang, dan kita mengenali, ada orang di luar sana yang lebih mudah untuk menerima teguran itu, maka kita sampaikan kepada orang itu, kita ada satu hajat, boleh tak awak tegur saudara kita ini, kita sayang dia, kita tak nak dia berterusan macam ini, nanti orang tak suka dia, orang tak sayang dia, kan? Boleh tak bantu untuk nasihatkan dia supaya dia tidak mengulang lagi tabiat dia atau perangai dia macam ini. Nanti mudah-mudahan orang tu setujulah dan dia akan sampaikan teguran tersebut. Wallahu a'lam.
Okey Ustaz. So untuk soalan seterusnya adalah individu ni direct message kepada saya Ustaz. How do we deal with difficult person at work who use harsh words when talking? Even after many consultation, the tension between this person is still ongoing. Is it okay to ignore this kind of person and create a boundary? As the saying goes, the limit of patience for every person.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely understandable that there's always a limit lah. Kesabaran kita tu terhad, ya. Kadang-kadang bila orang tu selalu cara mereka tu cara yang merendahkan kita, cara yang membuat kita rasa diri kita ini tidak berharga kepada organisasi itu ataupun usaha kita itu tiada nilainya, ya, membuat kita rasa marah. Lebih-lebih lagi bila cara dia bercakap, berucap dengan kita itu, cara dia kasar. Ini semua sangat-sangat tidak membantu. Ya. Jadi, saya rasa cara pertama bukan untuk block dia. Cara pertama bukan untuk memutuskan hubungan. Cara pertama adalah cuba untuk menasihatkan dia. Sama macam soalan yang sebelum ni. Kalau kita tak boleh sampaikan direct, kita sampaikan melalui orang lain. Kita tak boleh terus give up on someone. Kita tak boleh terus berputus asa terhadap seseorang itu sebelum memberikan dia peluang untuk menyedari kesilapannya dan kemudian untuk membuat perubahan. Okay. Kalau kita dah berikan semua itu dan dia tetap dengan cara lamanya juga, then maybe we can try different ways. Okay. Tapi sebelum itu kita janganlah terus okeylah kita block lah, kita tak nak berbual dia lagi lah. Kan? Ini cara untuk kita nak menyelamatkan diri kita. Mungkin itu adalah pilihan yang terakhir. That's the last resort. After you have tried so many things and none of them work, semua tak berjalan, semua tak berkesan. Okeylah, saya rasa ini waktunya untuk kita distancekan diri kita daripada dia, jauhkan, kita kurangkan perhubungan kita. We don't email them as much, we don't text them as much, kita menggunakan orang lain. Just to avoid getting hurt again, just to avoid getting triggered again. Okay, kalau triggered nanti kita marah, dan nanti kita akan cakap perkara-perkara yang tidak sepatutnya kita lafazkan.
Okey Ustaz, terima kasih kerana telah menjawab semua pertanyaan daripada audiens kita pada pagi ini. Mungkin ada sebarang persoalan daripada audiens, boleh tulis di ruangan chat dan saya akan bacakan kepada Ustaz.
Unmute yourself. Let me see if anybody message me privately.
Adakah yang dari Ustaz?
Okay, any questions? Silakan. Siapa nak type boleh, siapa nak viral message boleh, siapa nak unmute boleh. Silakan.
Ada lagi soalan ke kepada Ustaz Mizi?
Semua tengah fikirlah. Okay. Ini suara siapa ni? Suara
ada yang tanya soalan. Tapi yang ni soalan secara individu lah kepada Ustaz. Ada Ustaz planning nak launch buku baru ke?
Soalan tak ada kena-mengena sangat. Okay. Ada perancangan insya-Allah. Doakanlah mudah-mudahan tahun ni. Tajuknya semua secret lah. Nanti kalau ikut saya di Instagram ke Twitter, insya-Allah saya akan umumkan.
Okay, so Ustaz punya Instagram Mizi Wahid lah ya?
Betul. Doakan ya.
Okay, insya-Allah. Mungkin boleh direct message Ustaz dekat IG kot kalau nak tanya soalan juga, boleh ke?
Boleh?
Kalau ada soalan ke boleh ke? Direct message Ustaz dekat IG.
Masalahnya saya tak terlayan soalan-soalan di IG macam
Oh, terlalu ramai lah jadi Ustaz.
terlalu banyak DM.
Okey,
Tapi
faham.
inilah peluang terbaik inilah. Saya sekarang ada, I'm giving you my full attention. I'm here. We definitely have more, maybe 10 more minutes. Siapa nak tanya silakan. Mungkin mereka tak ada soalan direct tentang
Our topic today.
topik today.
So kalau out of topic pun tak apa Ustaz.
Bolehlah, insyaAllah.
Ada soalan kepada Ustaz? Mungkin yang berkaitan dengan topik ataupun yang tidak berkaitan, insyaAllah Ustaz akan jawab. Adakah 137 audiens yang mendengar ceramah kita pada pagi ini? Okey, saya rasa macam dah tak ada Ustaz.
Okay.
Okay. So saya ucapkan ribuan terima kasih kepada Ustaz Mizi Wahid atas kesudian untuk meluangkan masa dengan kita pada pagi ini dan kepada audiens yang menyertai kita pada pagi ini. Okay, Ustaz, stay safe
Terima kasih semua.
InsyaAllah. Jumpa lagi. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pada audiens minta isi attendance link dan juga feedback form link untuk mendapatkan CTD point masing-masing. Kena isi dua-dua link tersebut baru dapat CTD point. Sekretariat boleh bagi feedback form link? I attend ada tak? Okay, feedback form dah bagi. So saya bagi dua-dua dekat sini. Attendance dan juga feedback form link. Attendance dan juga feedback form link. Okay, isi dua-dua baru dapat CTD point. So untuk hari ni 2 jam so dapat 2 point. Okay, terima kasih. Jumpa lagi. Depan kita ada program bersama AKPK. Okay. Pengurusan hutang yang dapat bonus 700 belanja. Okay. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum. Oh, ada minta lagu ke? Okay. Lagu tadi terancangan bersama Kai lah. Assalamualaikum semuanya. Stay safe.
Terima kasih.
Sama-sama Wan Kristina ke tu?
Ya, betul.
Okay, sama-sama. Thank you Kai. Sama-sama Zu. Thank you bro Kai yang kacau. Allah. Thank you Encik Kai dan tim MRD. Sama-sama. Kita jumpa minggu depan program seterusnya. Selamat berhujung minggu, esok cuti. Okay, Assalamualaikum.